All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to class today. Good evening, can you hear me?
Good evening, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, Ahmed.
Good evening, sir.
Hey,
Yeah, good evening.
Okay. Evening, everyone. Some names here that I'm not really. Okay, I'll get to know you as we move on. All right, so welcome to our first formal class in CDM, Clinical Data Management. Help you become clinical data manager. All right, so finally we are here. All right, so many of us, virtually everyone, except one or two or three persons here, virtually everyone is completely new to IT and to this concept. So we're going to take it really, really, really slowly. And we'll have enough time to cover everything, all right? So we're not going to be too slow. But as much as possible, once you grasp everything we are doing in class, we'll try and make it as conversational as possible. Then you need to read any book. There are lots of materials, a box of materials on this topic, on this discipline, but it's not really, it's all theory. I can assure you that you don't need those materials if you already understand what we do in class, all right? However, you may just need to revise to broaden your vocabularies, but besides that, we already extracted the vital parts that you need for your interview and for the job from those materials, and you don't really have to go through them. But I do have them anyway, and I'll push them over to you. All right, so with that said, let's get started. What are you saying? Am I sharing anything yet? This is my notes, my Word document.
Yes.
No.
Somebody is it, and that person doesn't. Okay, so let's do this. This. And then I'll share. All right, we're ready. Okay, so what is CDM? Who is a CDM? Who is a clinical data manager? You will not understand what CDM is until you get the big picture of what clinical trial is. So let us start with the big picture and then we'll narrow it down until we get to your own position and tell you what your roles and responsibilities are in that big picture. All right, so clinical research industry. In clinical research industry, the whole concept of clinical research is that we have, in clinical research, there is the vendor and other stakeholders. And then what do we mean by clinical research? So clinical research is the concept of there is an ailment out there in the world. For example, HIV, cancer, I mean, whatever. There's a disease out there in the world. And there is a drug manufacturer, they call them big pharma, a drug manufacturer, a pharmaceutical company that goes into the lab to create a solution to build a chemical compound as a solution to this ailment. So when this person feels that he has found the solution, he has mixed carbohydrate with oxygen and mixed water, and this formula, this compound is now able to cure cancer, he is not allowed to just take it into the world to sell to people right away. That is not how it works. How it works is after this pharmaceutical company, this big pharma, this Pfizer, has found out that this drug has, at this point you can begin to call it drug. This compound has the potential to cure cancer. He will, first of all, having tried it in the lab, he will try it on animals, a couple of animals. All right. And then he will now announce to the drug regulation agency of that country. In the case of America, the Food and Drug Administration. Okay, paracetamol, FDA. And then he will announce to them that, look, I have this, and I think that it can cure cancer. And then FDA will now approve that drug for trial. So the clinical trial will start at the point when FDA says, okay, let us see the potency of this drug. Let us try it and see if it works. And then if it works, it's not accepted as a cure for that disease and released into the market, right? But this is not as simple as just discussing it around on a round table. It's something that will take some 2 years, 3 years, probably even 10 years of trial before they eventually come out to say, yes, we have verified the efficacy of this drug and it is good for human consumption and it's efficient for the purpose that it is manufactured for before it's now released to the market. So that whole process is clinical trial. So we're going to look at the whole process of clinical trial, the stages involved, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and then after stage 3, it is released to the market to face the stage 4. And then at each of these stages would highlight your role as clinical data manager, what you are expected to do at stage 1, your role and responsibility at stage 2, your duties at stage 3, and how you would put all of those data together for submission to FDA for the final release to the market at stage 4. All right? So, clinical research is both responsible for innovation in the pharmaceutical industry, and it's also responsible for the bottleneck. Bottleneck in the case of COVID-19, for example, when the drug was ready and everybody was saying, what are they waiting for? Why don't they just release it? People are dying. The bottleneck was introduced by clinical research because that drug had to be tested before it was finally approved. And ideally, it would even take much longer, but because it was under an emergency situation, the government had to bend some rules to rush it through clinical trials so that people would not die before the drugs were finally ready. All right? So, there are so many stakeholders involved in this clinical trial, like you would say earlier on. But the first of them, the number one of all the different stakeholders, the different professionals involved, is the sponsor. So by the sponsor, I mean, you may begin to write these terms down now because these are the terms they expect you to use during the interview. And so the sponsor is the pharmaceutical industry, the pharmaceutical company, otherwise generally called big pharma. And also, drug is not always about drug. Sometimes it's also about devices. So when we talk about somebody being in lab and manufacturing something that is going to cure some disease, some ailment outside, it may not always be drug. Sometimes it's a device. It could be a device as tiny as a microchip that you can implant in the brain to correct something in the brain. It could be a device as flat as that. Okay, we have some nurses here actually. So it could be a device as flat as that could help you, that you could open your bone, your knee, and put. There are also devices apart from medicine. It could even be a device for to support your breath, so that if you cannot breathe by yourself, these things are tested. They are not just manufactured. And so it is not always about drugs. So sometimes we don't want to say drugs. So we want to use the general name, investigative products. Investigative product would be a general name, meaning that you are not just restricting your research to drugs, you are also including devices. And companies that manufacture devices are called biotech. So I'm going to be saying big pharma and biotech companies, meaning the sponsors that manufacture drugs and sponsors that manufacture devices. So usually these are privately owned companies. All right. These privately owned companies like Blackstone, and the only name that keeps coming to mind is Pfizer. I know there are many of them. They do more than at least 90% of the drug trials out there, the drugs and the devices trial. All right. So, but other NH institutions, specifically universities and research institutions, also get grants from governments to do this kind of research as well. But they only take like 10% of the total market. Therefore, it is likely that the job you're looking for outside when you are done with this class is likely to be with the 90% share of the market, with big pharmas and biotech companies, because they do 90% of drug research. So they are called sponsors because they owe the money. They are very rich. They are very, very rich. So no wonder the owner of the father of pharmacy in recent times was the richest, I think even in debt, still the richest man in the world. All right, so these companies are very, very rich, and they spend as much as $1 billion on just one drug research. However, once the drug comes through and it is released to the market, they will make their profit. All right. So we have learned one vocabulary: sponsor. Who is a sponsor? The big pharmas and the biotech companies. What do they sponsor? They sponsor the research of drugs that they own and manufacture. They are called sponsor because the money that they need to put on that chain of processes that ultimately result in release of that drug to market, they provide the money, they finance the project. All right, any question at this point? Any question? Okay, we have so many people on video. I didn't know. Yeah, Kima is here. Kima is a nurse, so we'll be learning. We'll just be sharing ideas with us and telling us what we are, just rub minds, basically, right? So, Kima, do you have anything to contribute at this stage? And even Funke as well later on, yeah?
Yeah, no, not really. You pretty much, laid it out, so.
Okay. Ifeanyi is there. Funke, do you want to say something? Okay, finally, we are seeing Nabulungi today. Awesome, good to see you. Funke, do you want to add something to our discussion? Just to help these other people who are coming into this field for the first time, learn one or two things.
Did you say big pharma and biotech companies are the sponsors?
Yes, they are sponsors.
Okay.
Grace, Pale, are you following? Doesn't look like Funke is hearing us. Anyway, all right, so let's go on. Feel free to
I
stop.
can hear. I can hear. I don't know. I'm on mute.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I'm so glad you know the one that said investigative jury for the general name, right? Because I never knew.
Investigator.
Yeah. All right. That's good. All right. So when we say preclinical, we're basically talking about the little trial that takes place before the phase 1. Even though we recognize the phase 1 as the real beginning of trials, preliminary trials had taken place in the lab and with animals. You watch movies, you see some rats, laboratory raising rats and some animals that you want to do. They test these drugs on them first of all, before it even gets to the stage of, okay, haven't passed through that preliminary stages, human cannot consume it. All right, so we call all of that preclinical. The lab trial and trials on animal, preclinical. That's not really your business. Your business starts when it has been approved for phase 1.
By FDA.
By FDA, yes, and other stakeholders that we are going to mention.
And you said it's 3 phases, right?
4 phases actually.
4, okay.
Yeah, 4. But the first 3 phases are the real important ones for us as CDM.
Okay.
Beyond that, there is a phase 4. All right. So we have learned sponsor, and then we have learned that there is something called preclinical. Before they even call you in as a CDM to come and take over this role, there had already been some preliminary investigation in the lab and on others. And then there is something called investigative sites. Investigative sites. Earlier on, we talked about investigative products, usually drugs, stroke devices. Now, investigative sites is basically means hospital. It's just a vocabulary for hospital. But at interviews, they expect you to use the term investigative sites. So these are basically hospitals. These are sites where the patients that will be recruited. So for this trial, people will be recruited. They say, okay, we are testing this drug for cancer, for example. So how are you going to know if it cures cancer if you are not testing it on people who have cancer? You are going to recruit cancer patients, people who have that disease, to come on board. So where is the point, the gathering point that you recruit them from? That's your investigative site. So basically hospital, usually hospital. If it's not hospital, then you'd have to make arrangements and let them know.
Sorry, did you say investigative trials?
Sites, S-I-T,
Site.
site.
Okay, sites, okay.
Yeah. All right. And then the phase 1 of this long trial would usually have a single site. So when we say site, what do we mean? Anytime we say site, now site.
Like a hospital. Mm-hmm.
Hospital, yeah, basically hospital. So the CRA has gone to site, the site is down, whatever. It's not a website. We just mean hospital. All right. So usually for phase 1, one site to do, just one site will do to carry out that test. And then once we successfully scale through phase 1, then we'll progress to phase 2. If you do not scale through phase 1, the drug phase at that level and does not progress, does not proceed to phase 2. So not all drugs that started phase 1 ultimately makes it to phase 3. All right. So once phase 1 is successful, it moves to phase 2. So phase 1 is like that, one site. Phase 2, you expand to up to 10 sites. So you are now contracting from one site. Oh, beautiful. That result was good. You contract 10 different sites now, 10 different hospitals. Okay, first time we did it in California, now we want to spread it across America. So one in Dallas, one in Maryland, 10 sites. And then at the phase 3 level, wow. So if it was going to kill millions of people, you already tried it on 10 persons, on 100 persons, now on thousands of people. Now At the phase 3 level, you cannot have between the sponsor cannot raise as many as between 20 and 100 different sites. As CRM, you don't go to sites. You have no business with sites. But activities are going on these sites. The other stakeholders and the other people that are part of this big project, $1 billion project is not a small project. They are working on sites and so on and so forth, but you are not on site. All right, so that was just to give you an overview of how the phases would expand from phase 1 to phase 2 to phase 3. All right? Other terms you should get used to. Now, big pharmas and biotech, they are too big to interact directly with. Or maybe not because they are, their product is the drug. They want to focus on their investigative products. They don't want to be the ones managing and pursuing doctors, nurses, CRAs, CRCs, and even CDMs to do their work. So what they do, the best practice of the industry is for big pharmas and biotech to contract this job of research, this clinical research job, to what we call CRO. CRO means Contract Research Organization. Contract Research Organization. So they call CRO and contract this job to them. That's my understanding of it. So it is very likely that you will be working for CRO. So CRO is, okay, let's see if we can do that in diagram. Instead of looking at your faces, let me reduce this. Okay, so what we are saying there is, so we have the big pharma, they are the sponsors. Where is my, they are the sponsors, these are the big guys. And then we have these other people that are going to work here, CDM, and these other people that work as part of this process, so developing, trying, and releasing the drug. But they don't come directly to interact with these people. So what is CRO? What they will do is they contract the CRO. So let's put CRO there. CRO. These are the sponsors. So this is what I mean. So it is the CRO, the Contract Research Organization, that would do all the coordination that is necessary. So the billions of dollars that these people are spending, the 90% or so of them will come through these people. So it is the CRO that will contract the sites, the PIs, the CDM like you, the CRAs, the SC, and so on and so forth. Everybody, or virtually everybody. Occasionally, they will have a small department as well here that would oversee this. But majorly, everyone will work under CR because these are the contractors. These are the people who know how to do the research. These people only know how to manufacture the drugs, and they have the money. For this business, money is the most important. These people have the money, and they have the drug. Sometimes they don't even have the drug. The drug could be from somebody, from an ordinary person, like a nobody. But as long as these people have the money, they will use their name to bring the drug to the market. So there is CRO. And CRO is the most common interface. So occasionally you have people saying, oh, I got this job directly from, if you can say my pen, from the pharmaceutical company, the big pharma. That means that happens occasionally, but it's not very common. But when it happens, it's bigger money than when you are contracted through CRO. So there are a couple of CRO, but the most common is the most common CRO that is really hiring all the time and they have products all the time is Aquiva. Do you know any other name that is common again? Aquiva. So the kind of vacancies and the openings you'll be seeing, many of them will be from the company, yeah, but it's a CRO, not the pharmaceutical direct. Right? I have a couple of other names, but that is the most common of them. All right, so do you know the place of CRO in all of this? Huh? Hello?
Yeah, the one that hires people to work, like the clinical research analysts, the CDM people, the
Okay.
all the the investigators that can come through my mind.
Yeah, or another way to say it is the whole job of clinical research is connected to the CR by the sponsor. So therefore, everyone who is involved in that job of clinical research, from like those titles we were mentioning, they work under the CRO.
Under the CRO. Okay.
It's although it's possible, but it's not common for the sponsors to come out by themselves and say we want to write our exam and investigate our own exam by ourselves. No. The way it is done is for them to contract it to these experts who are very good and know how to do this investigation. All right? Okay, so that's it. Then there is something called on site, the primary person, the number one person that is responsible on site, the number one person that is responsible to the CR and the sponsor. You know, there are many people working on site, the different levels of nurses and so on and so forth. But the primary person there is the PI, principal investigator. PI, principal investigator. All right. All right. So you prefer to use when you are speaking the language of CDM than use a doctor, even though we know this usually a doctor. All right. So principal investigator, that would usually be the physician responsible to the sponsor. And what is the physician really responsible for? What the primary thing is responsible for? Safety. It's always about safety of patients. Even though there are so many people working on sites and working under the physician, the primary investigator, this is the man that will be held responsible if anything happens to a patient. This is the person that will be held responsible. So he's the one who signs documents, even though he did not necessarily by himself carry out the measurements or whatever it is on the document. He's the person who is responsible, who is charged as having completed that particular document, the content of the document that he signed, all right? The principal investigator. And then we have the clinical or study research coordinator. I'll be saying CRC, clinical. It means clinical research coordinator. CRC means clinical research coordinator. So who is he? The doctor is a big guy. The physician, the primary the principal investigator is a big guy. So it's not the guy who runs around in the office. So the person who runs around doing things in the office, oh, the patient is here, take measurement, go and bring it. Okay, what did you take? Put it there. That person is the CRC. CRC. All right? Again, and the deal is you can begin to read that person be a nurse, but not necessarily to be some technician, some clinical technician, but CRC, clinical research coordinator. All right?
Is he the doctor?
No, the doctor is the PI.
PI, okay.
Principal investigator, yeah. This one is somebody working under the doctor that does the real work, does all the work on site. Yeah, maybe a nurse, maybe a technician, a medical technician, maybe any of those other titles. All right. So the doctor is the okay. He uses his glasses and then signs the paper. Okay, you take this there. Have you taken what's the temperature? Have you taken? Okay. So the doctor just signs, but the CRC does the work. And then we have the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration. Food and Drug Administration. That's the father of this whole process. And then we have something called Institutional Review Board, IRB. I'm going to give you that note. So IRB, Institutional Review Board. So this is an independent committee for patient safety. So patient safety is so important. So you don't trust the sponsors, the owners of the drug to do an error-free job because they might just be interested in making profit and do things unethically. So there is an independent safety body that is working independently along with the FDA to ensure the safety of patients. So all they are looking at is, okay, yeah, I see this, but why are you putting this word here? This one will harm the patient. Why are you putting? So they have the safety of patient at heart and always reviewing documents and processes to ensure that safety of patient is guaranteed. On one hand, the FDA through the PI, the sponsor through the PI has ensured some level of safety, but you cannot depend on that wholly. You want an independent committee that will look at this safety and ensure that the precautions are taken into consideration, not just in theory, but also in practice. All right? IRB. All right, so there is something called, are you following so far?
Yes.
All right, so who's here? So if I who is the CRC? What does the CRC do?
The CRC works under the PI. He or she does more of the work while the PI do the overhead work, like signing the document and all that.
Okay. So who's the PI?
The PI, the PI is the number one person
Grace.
responsible to the CRO.
Okay, so that's good. Grace, who is the PI?
The principal investigator.
Okay, so where does he work?
He works on site, which is the hospital.
Yes,
and he
on site.
works
Okay,
for the
so,
safety of the patient.
Yes, cool. All right, beautiful. All right, so there is something very, very important that we'll be using from here on. Now, when the non-drug investigative product is ready to move into one. The FDA, the IRB, especially the IRB now, and these are the key stakeholders, and any other minor stakeholders work together with the sponsor. These are the three stakeholders: the sponsor, the FDA, and especially the IRB. They work together on a document. It is this document about, it could be, I'm going to give you one of those documents, about 20-something pages. This document contains all the details. In IT, you call that the requirement document. The details of the drug and the investigative product and how the trials will be carried out at the different phases. This document is called the protocol. So the protocol is the document that has the detail. I have it here. Okay, I don't have it. So basically, the protocol is a document that contains the details about the entire investigative processes and how they will be carried out. So every other document, because there'll be a lot of documentation here, because we are talking about data. Data basically means documentation. Every other documentation, every other data will be drawn, will be modeled from the protocol. So the protocol, when they call the CRO to say, okay, come, we have a job for you, and they sit around the table and they discuss, the document they are handing over to the CRO to say, go and start work. That is the protocol. So it is on that protocol, on that document, that everything else that the PI does, that the CRC does, that especially you, the CDM, everything else that you do will be drawn from that document. So the document is multifaceted. Everybody goes there to extract his own part of the job. And we all do our bit to ensure that we work according to the specification. If we work outside of that specification, and that is one thing that you also as the CDM have to, I mean, that's one reason you are being hired, to ensure that the data is captured according to the specification of the protocol. If it is captured and you have volumes of data, but not according to useless data, it's completely useless. Nobody's going to use it, right? So protocol is very, very important. Protocol. It's a document, even though it was originally formed by the sponsor, it has to be approved and sanctioned by the IRB and FDA before it is released. All right, before it is released for the work proper. And what's the work proper? The clinical trial from phase 1. All right. Okay, so the IRB approves protocol from the viewpoint that it is safe for patients and ensure that patients are willing. That's another important point. They may not necessarily ask you that at interview, but you should bear it at the back of your mind. That patients must be willing participants. So how do you ensure that patients are willing? That we are not bribing or sanctioning or blackmailing a patient into participating in the trial. It must be willing. All right. So the IRB, that's where they come in. You leave it to the big farmers, they just use money to buy everybody over. So the IRB will come in to draw up their own kind of documents and put their own kind of processes in place to check. I mean, the forms that patient will sign, the explanation that you have to do, not your work, but the CRC has to do to ensure that the patient understands what he's coming into before he eventually gives his consent. All of that has to be ensured as part of the protocol. So the protocol will state all the details. All right. Another term you should get used to is IND. It means investigation on new drug application. You know, when we said earlier on that prior to phase 1, there had been preclinical trial carried out in the lab and on animals. Before you now start the phase 1 trial, then the sponsor has to apply to FDA that, okay, this drug is ready for investigation. We want to start the phase 1. That application that they make to FDA is called Investigation on New Drug Application. All right, IND. Investigation on New Drug Application. And then there is NDA, New Drug Application. That is similar to the application you made when you wanted to start the investigation. But this one is the application for approval. So at the end of phase 3, you apply for, oh, my drug has passed phase 3. It is ready to go into the market. Look at the data, look at the records, look at everything. You check for yourself. So that application that you make when you are submitting the final data to FDA is called NDA. NDA. It means New Drug Application. So New Drug Application is different from Investigation on New Drug Application. IND is at the beginning, NDA at the end. No, that was the end of phase 3. And then once you are past phase 3, it can be said that that drug the trial has been successful because phase 4 is basically already in the market. And we're just looking at no longer the efficacy of the drug. The drug is already efficient. It's already doing its work. We are just looking at reducing the adverse effects on that drug as much as possible. Maybe initially you said, yeah, this drug will cure this disease, but you would have headache and you have this, you have that. Those are the effects. Then at the stage 4, you want to see how you can reduce. The manufacturer wants to continue to work on the drug to see how you can reduce headache effect, the tiredness effect, and so on and so forth. But it does the work anyway. Okay. All right. So that's the overview of the terms to understand before we go to try. All right. So basically, what do we get from? What do we get from? Who do you get it from? Depending on who you are working for. But this time, let's just continue to assume that we are working for CRO because that's where the job is. To work for big pharma, that's big money.
I have a couple
So,
questions. Sorry.
Okay, yeah.
So the first thing is, I don't know if anybody else is experiencing this, but your whiteboard, it's like it's cut in half for some reason on my end. So I can't really see a lot. So I'm just going to ask a couple questions. Yeah. So the IRB, can you tell me what that stands for again?
IRB, it stands for Institutional Review Board.
Okay, review board. And then the thing with the IRB, what phase are they relevant? Is that like phase 1 or phase 2?
From the very beginning to the very end. Pre-phase 1 to end, to the entire phases. So in drawing up the protocol, yes.
And what about the CRC?
CRC means Clinical Research Coordinator.
Okay. And you said that they're the ones that make sure the patients understand the process and stuff like that. So I'm assuming then that they're relevant once you start getting patients on board. Is this phase 1 or phase 2?
On the site, everything that the site is involved in. So typically the site will be involved from the point of first patient in and first registration.
Okay,
They will talk more about that.
okay,
Before we get to the sites, before we get to the point when the CRC becomes really active, a lot of work has to be done and a lot of things put in place by you, the CDM.
okay.
Like designing system, we'll talk about that. So the internet that is breaking, is it really, I didn't know that. So how does it affect you? Was it just schema or who else experienced that?
Yeah, it's affecting me too.
It's affecting
I
me.
think it's affecting everyone.
Mhm.
But
Yeah, so
okay,
that's
I
why it
think
was
somebody,
hard to.
let me
Yeah.
see, how much time, this just, okay. Because give me, because I don't want you to, let me move from here so that I don't suffer this internet thing. I'm not disconnected, just moving as it is. Right? You're not even hearing. Let me move to a better place. All right. Hello. There's my mouse. I hope I didn't leave my mouse there. No, I didn't. All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, hopefully this is a different modem here. It's a bigger modem. Oh, let me change to the bigger modem. I'm changing my internet modem. Okay. Okay, so that's fine. You should hear, it should be better now. All right, so any other question? Okay, so I was going to ask, what if you are coming in to design as the CDM, to design the system for the new, you are coming in to design the research process of this new drug for this new pharmaceutical company. What is the singular thing that you would ask them to give to you to go and start work? What is that thing? Just one thing.
Protocol.
Protocol.
Yes, yes, protocol. That is it. So you understand the importance of protocol with that one. All right. So once you get the protocol and how, okay, Kema was asking how the protocol was developed. So how did we come about the protocol? Who developed the protocol? How did the protocol come about? It's a document, right? It's a document, but who developed it?
The FDA and the IRB.
With the
The FDA.
sponsors.
Sponsors.
Yeah, the sponsors first, then the other two. So the sponsors, but overseen by the FDA and the IRB. The IRB on behalf of the patient, just the safety of the patient and the general public at heart. Correct. So these are the things. So these are the ways you explain this concept at interviews. So once you have that protocol, the next thing you want to do is you want to do your what you call study setup. You set up the study. Another word for research is study. Okay, clinical research, clinical study. So you want to set up the study as a CDM. That's the first thing you want to do. So you get the protocol, then you set up the study. All right. So the next step after that is you want to activate the site activation.
What was the first step?
The first step was get the protocol development, and then do study startup. And then the third one is site activation. And then after site activation, once the site is activated, what's the next thing you think we should be doing? That is the system that you design as the CDM. You don't know about the system yet. That's what you are going to learn. But it's been designed and it's active now. The next thing you want to do is start enrolling your patients. So enrollment will start. So fourth stage, enrollment, patient enrollment. It's more like announcing everybody who has cancer, please come. And then you enroll them. And then after that, you conduct your study now. You do your study conduct, research conduct, because you now have enough patients to actually conduct your research. And then once you have completed the study of your research, the conduct of your research, then you close your research. It's called study close out. Study close. So your interviews will definitely, they're going to ask you, okay, what have you done before? Yeah.
I think it's still cutting out a little bit.
In the study startup at that level. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Where was that model? Okay. So where did I lose you?
From the fourth, like from the site activation, then the fourth one is
enrollment.
Part.
Enrollment. Start to enroll patients on the site. Once the site is activated, the next thing is you start to enroll patients. Did you get that now?
Yes, enroll patient, yeah.
Okay. And then after you enroll patients and you have enough patients in your database to test the drugs on, you now start your study conduct. That's the next phase, study conduct. So these are the different phases we are going to be zooming on and looking at in details. And then after study conduct, once you complete the study, what do? You close out the study.
Close out.
We say study closeout. So these are the areas you will be working on as the CDM, the system you'll be designing. The system you'll be designing should be able to, from the point of picking up the protocol, do all of this. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Any questions?
Later on, will we be getting into different examples of different systems the CDM would be using to control a patient?
To do what?
Like, say if you already have the job as the CDM. So now, you got the protocol, you're starting to set everything up in the patients. Will we talk about different examples of different systems that a CDM may use that?
Yeah, actually, we are going to build our own system.
Okay, but would that system be comparable to the systems that are used currently at different sites? Okay.
So we are going to build our system from the protocol. So we are going to have a protocol, and then we extract the different systems from the protocol.
Okay.
I mean, we extract the different parts of the protocol, assemble that to form our system. And by system, we're typically saying the format in which we need our database. What are we getting from the patient? How does the protocol expect us to lay this out and extract the information therein? So we're not actually talking about the software that the hospitals are already using. We're not building a new software.
Because, because the reason I'm asking is if you type in CDM positions, what I'm seeing in the description of it, they want to know, do you know certain systems already that I guess universally is used?
So
that's what I was just asking.
Yeah, we'll cover, we're actually going to build a system. I mean, what I mean by a system, we're going to build that by ourselves. So in the process of building it, you will see how it is done.
Okay.
You'll see how it is done. All right, so okay. So this time I need us to answer more questions. So we know who sponsors are, what CROs are, who is a vendor.
That's the third party, right?
Yes. So what third parties might you have working as part of this processes we just described? Example would be the laboratory. The lab where these tests are, maybe you take blood samples or urine samples and stuff like that, all right? The hospitals don't work on those directly, so they send them somewhere else. So that would be like a sponsor, yeah. I mean, a vendor, sorry. So a lab would be a typical example of vendor. The lab is actually working not for sites, but for the sponsor, but of course, in collaboration with sites. All right, so at this stage, you should at least have an idea what clinical trial is and why we need clinical trials. Again, not like they will ask you directly at interviews, but you should know what they are to answer interview questions. All right, so what are clinical trials? Anyone?
Yeah, I think clinical trials are the process big drug pharmaceuticals undergo before producing drugs.
Okay. All right, that's fine. Any other contribution? Any other contribution? I mean, this was an interview and they are just doing the warm-up, not the real thing, just warming you up for the real question. By the way, do you know what clinical trials are? How are you going to respond?
It's clinical trials are when a pharmaceutical company build a compound to fix a health issue. Example, cancer, COVID-19 that we're undergoing right now, and other devices that can be used on the patient.
Okay, so just like that's putting it different. I mean, just a different way of saying what Ifeanyi already said. Yeah. Any other perspectives to that? Clinical trial.
It's research study test. Research study, testing how well the medicine works on people, medicine or devices.
Okay.
Work on people. Somebody said testing is testing the efficiency of the drugs.
Okay.
I can say clinical trials are where the investigative products are being tried on patients to make sure they pass all 3 phases before it's being distributed to the market.
Okay. All right, good answers. But I'm looking for the best that you can take and write down so that
For research. Did you leave?
I know it got quiet. You're really
I
quiet.
think he left.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh, wow. Okay. We lost him. Yep. All right. Somebody tell me what was number 2. Remember he had 1 protocol development. What was 2?
Oh, okay. Hold on. I'll tell you. Yeah, so 1 is get protocol. Oh, step 2 is set up the study.
Oh.
Like when the CDM is like setting up the study. Then I got step 3. Anybody correct me if I'm wrong. So then step 3 was site activation. Step 4 was enrollment of patients.
Okay.
Yeah, you got it.
Step 5, study conduct. And then step 6, study
Close out.
Okay.
Close out.
And he's back. All right.
sorry about that. I just lost you.
We were just going over some notes.
Yeah, I see that. Well done. That was a good one. Okay, so yeah, we're talking about
clinical trials. So you were looking for something specifically about a clinical trial.
Something like the best answer that would just hold on to for
research study.
Okay, yeah, somebody said that, yeah. Research study, yeah?
Um,
Yeah, so what
Okay.
research study?
Okay, it's a process where a pharmaceutical company tests a drug on animal before it's been announced for trial by the FDA using the process of a contract, CRO, contract research organization, which goes down to having to go through a process of using investigator, principal investigator.
Yeah, you want to show all of your vocabulary in just this? No, just it's a bit long. Can you shorten it?
Okay.
Okay, I think it's a way the researchers find out if the new drug is safe to use on people.
Okay. Yeah, that's the objective, yeah. The safe and efficient. So maybe you just put it like the clinical trial is about the drug, actually, not about the pharmaceutical company. So this is about the drug, the investigative product. So the stages that the investigative products go through, the steps, the processes that they go through to ensure what Abimbola said, that this drug is efficient and safe.
Sorry, can you come again, sir?
The clinical trial would be the stages or phases, because we actually know that there are 4 phases.
Okay.
The phases that drug, that
new medications.
Product.
Huh? Investigative product go through to ensure that they are safe and efficient for the purpose they are manufactured for.
They are safe.
Safe and what?
Safety and efficacy, those are the 2 important.
Safety and what?
And efficacy, safety and efficacy. So put that however you want. Maybe safe and efficient. It's not a machine, so efficient is not the, what's the better word there? Effective?
Effective.
Efficacy. Let's see efficacy. To test for safety and efficacy. Those are the 2 key
Efficacy.
words. Yeah. Safety and efficacy.
Efficacy.
Yeah.
Safety and efficacy.
Yeah.
Trial would be the stages and phases that investigative products go through to ensure that they are safety and effective.
Wow, that was going so well until yeah. Just look for a way
efficacy and efficacy
to ensure safety and
effective. What about safety and effective?
Effective,
right? Will be the verb. They are safe and effective.
Safe and effective, right?
On the patient, yeah.
On the patient.
Effective is a better word.
Okay.
Safe and effective on the patients.
Because efficacy, it could be a drug that's good, but the efficacy just means it no longer works at some stage, but it doesn't mean that it wasn't good before. So I want to say effective.
Okay.
Effective.
All right. All right. So now we've got a definition for that. I mean, not really a definition, because it's not standard, but at least the way we understand it, if we present it like that, makes sense. Then why do we need clinical trials? We know why we need clinical trials. Okay, let's just, while we're rushing, let's learn it. Why do we need clinical trials?
To make sure that the investigative product met its purpose on for a specific medical condition or for a specific purpose.
Okay, so how do you know when it meets its purpose? What are the performance indicators?
When it go through the phases from phase 1 to 4, and after the study has been conducted to close out.
So how do you know that this drug, eventually, this investigative product, achieved the purpose like you put it? That it is safe and effective like you put it. Those are the two words always that you're looking for. It is safe.
The only way you'll know if it's effective is by, well, first we test it on animals, of course, but then you have to, that's when we come up with the volunteer patients. And then you start collecting data, per patient to see, was it working for you? What were the adverse effects? And then gathering that data, that will let you know, is it effective or not?
Yeah.
So what you're looking out for is, so all of this data would.
But I think he's looking for something.
Yeah. Those two words out. I was just looking for safety and efficacy.
Okay.
Those are the two words I was looking for. Maybe not exactly that way, but I wanted to just speak this.
Okay.
All right. So, okay, we'll come back to those ones later. So clinical trials are carried out on drugs, devices, and also procedures in phases. So clinical trial that we talked about, we said, why do we need clinical trials? What is clinical trial? But these clinical trials are carried out in phases, typically in 4 phases. It could be on drugs, it could be on devices. Sometimes they're even on procedures that the procedure for doing this is no longer effective. Can we do it in a better way that is more effective instead of spending 30 minutes in operations? Is there a better and faster way of achieving that same goal in 15 minutes? So it's also about procedures. All right. Then I have here 10 clinical research organizations, CROs. Aquiva is number 1. Then I have a number of them. Of course, you'll be seeing them as you're applying for positions. IQVIA, that's the number 1. All right, there'll be other CROs. These are the companies that get the contract from sponsors. And these are the companies I'll be advertising. These are the companies I'll be advertising for CRA, for CRC, they don't advertise for PIs. PIs already own their own hospitals.
Yeah.
For CDM, especially CDMs, and so on and so on. Okay. All right, so drug development, preclinical would typically take 1 to 3 years. And then phase 1 would usually be between the 3rd year and the 5th year. Phase 2 up to the 6th year. Then phase 3 between the 6th year and the 11th year. So a single drug can take up to 12 years to finally be stable in the market. Yes.
So are you saying that, okay, when we get our protocol to start our trial,
yeah.
And it can take up to 11 years.
Yes, from that.
What's phase 1 is
not rigidly so, but typically it can take up to 11 years.
Wow.
Yes. Yes,
This is why a lot of people were wondering with the vaccine, how did it come out so fast?
I was just thinking that.
Yes.
Yeah,
just
that's what I'm about to say.
Now, the lady from Moderna said that they had already been working on it for a few years. So once, COVID-19 came out, according to the professor, she's making it like they were already between like maybe the 2nd or 3rd phase of it. So that was her justification as why it came up so early. I'm just putting it out there so we can all put a perspective in real life. Okay.
I know, but I'm sorry. But one thing I just noticed is maybe because I work in the federal government sector sometimes. There's a lot of protocols that these people broke just to make sure So we're not a baby. We know how this game works. So sometimes they just come out there to just make us look like fools, like we don't know what's going on. So are they telling us that for like 10, 11 years ago, you guys know this is coming for us?
That's
Well,
what
if
they're
you
saying.
look,
That's what they're
if you
saying.
look, but if you look like on the Lysol cans back in the day, it had COVID on the back of the Lysol can.
Yeah, I was just
Years
gonna
and
say
years
that.
and years ago.
I know,
So,
Yeah,
but
to
not,
her point, coronavirus been out since like
but
the
not
80s.
to this magnitude.
Exactly. So it's like a different strand. COVID-19 is a different
Right.
strand. That's why it's 19, right? So it's a different strand, but it's
Okay.
not new.
but they can't tell me they follow all the
We lost you
Oh,
for a
no.
long time.
protocols that have been breaking,
Yeah.
because there's a
So
lot of pressure. They bypass a lot of things that needs to be done. And this is
Exactly.
the reason why some people are trying not to get the vaccine. You
Exactly.
know what I mean?
So they're basically not even treating us like,
Thank you.
I guess one can look at it like we're the patients. Let's say that the CRO is,
We the trial.
finding, but they can also be treating us on a level of the monkeys in a clinical trial.
Thank you.
That's true.
Two ways to look at it. So either way, they're experimenting on us and we're allowing them to.
And that's why they're making it look like people are stupid. No, nobody's stupid. If I don't want to get the vaccine, I know how this game works. You guys bypass some protocols. So don't make people feel like you're doing the right thing. And that's why people doesn't want to take it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we kind of.
Okay, so could you tell me again, phase 1 is 1 to 3 years?
Yes.
Okay.
No, the preliminary
3 to
stage
5.
is
3 to
between 1 to
5.
3 years.
Yeah,
Preliminary.
5.
Preliminary.
Oh, preliminary.
That's 1 to 3 years.
Yeah.
Preliminary stage is
Mhm.
1 to 3. And then
Yeah.
then what?
Phase
Then
one.
Phase 1 is 3 to
phase
5.
1,
The 3rd to 5th year.
3 to
Oh,
5 years. And then phase
Phase
Oh,
3
Phase
up to
2.
6.
Up to the 6th year, between the 6th year to the 11th year.
to
that's
11
phase
years.
2.
Am I correct?
No,
thought
that's
Phase
phase
3. Phase 3, yeah.
Yeah.
3.
Yeah. Phase 3 is to the 11th year.
Then the
Phase
phase 4
3 is to the 11th year.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so now you didn't talk about, okay, so the CDM, we don't do phase 4, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
by no CDM, once you are done with phase 3, you are off.
Close out. Study
Yeah, you
close
close
out.
that. Yeah.
So
Okay,
one quick
phase-
question, sir.
Yeah.
So as a CDM, do you have to work on multiple
Projects, yes.
protocols?
They are going to ask you how many multiple projects have you worked in or are you currently working on? So it would be 2 or 3,
Okay.
not 1.
Sorry, quick question.
Yeah.
Can you be let's say you're employed now, can you start from phase 2? Like, when you're employed, can you continue from phase 2 or what?
Yeah, because it's unlikely that the same person for this project will be there for 11 years. So somebody might start it on phase 1 and then phase 2, he's hired directly by the big pharma. He quits the CRO and moves on, and then they look for Alexandra to come and take over. Alexandra, 2 years, she moves on, and then they are looking for, who wants to take over? Mary. All right. Yes.
And sometimes they hire contractors. I think because when I was doing my research, I see that they're hiring contractors as well. So my guess is, since you said it takes a lot of years, some people might just quit and be like, oh, we need prior to 6 months on this trial to be done. Maybe down the stage of 5 where they they're conducting the study already. So they just need someone to do the closeout. Then they hire a contractor.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, basically you can come in at any stage here, but be prepared to come in from the scratch. In other words, they might need you to come build the whole system from scratch. And that's where the work is.
Oh, sir. So if they ask you during the interview, how many projects are you working on? You said 3.
2 or 3.
2 or 3. So they might ask some challenges that we had to face.
You answer them now. There's no challenge that will, this training will not solve. You answer them. Okay. And then if you cannot answer them, bring the challenge back to class and then we'll solve it.
No, I have to answer them.
No, we understand that not all interviews will be successful. So the ones that you find difficult, bring them to class and then we'll trash them and then take. They are interviews all over the place. If you fail in one, you get another. And in any case, there are sample interviews here.
Okay.
There are sample interviews. So you hear the questions, you flow with the answers. And by the time you are listening to those interviews, you already understand this picture enough to understand what the answers are. It will be so difficult. All right, so I'm going to give you this note. And then we're now going to do drug timeline. Yeah, that's about it. Clinical overview. What is data entry, data capture? Yeah, we'll come back to all of this later on. All right. Trial phase 1. What happens in phase 1? Drug trial phase 1. So the phase 1 will typically last, the first one we talked about, yeah, that was typical, but more realistically, the phase 1 will normally last like 2 years to determine the phase 1. The trial phase 1 is determining one thing. What is the highest dose of this trial drug in this case, that is safe for human consumption without side effects? That is what we are determining in phase 1. So the trial phase 1 is determining typically within 2 years, not necessarily up to the theoretical 4 years we talked about earlier on. What is the highest dose of the trial drug that a human can take without any side effect? Safety. First of all, we're not even talking about whether it's curing something or it's not curing. So in other words, you don't necessarily need ailing patients at this stage to try the drugs on. All right, so very important. At stage 1, we're just testing for safety. What is the highest level? The 10 milligram, 20 milligram, after 40 milligram, the guy begins to get headache. You want to ensure that now you have determined that the maximum dose of this drug is 40 milligram, not more than that. That's what you want to determine. And of course, you also want to see amongst the different options, the different ways of administering this drug, which is the most effective for you. All right? You want to take it orally? Do you want to take it by injection? Do you want to take it as cream? All right, the cream thing has some medical name to it, but let's just simplify. All right.
That's phase 2.
Sorry?
Did you say that was phase 2?
No, phase 1.
Oh, phase 1.
Yeah, all of this is still part of phase 1.
Oh, okay.
So the real thing you are testing in phase 1, the real purpose of phase 1 is what is the highest level of dose that is safe for human consumption. The higher dosage. Okay. So for phase 1, you typically have about less than 100 healthy volunteers. Because you are testing for safety now, it's not really about, is it working? It's not about efficacy. So it's healthy volunteers now. Yeah, you could have disease patients, but it's mostly healthy. And then, yeah, these are the things you need to answer interview questions. So you do several months of study to determine safety and dosage. So it will not be right to say after the phase 1 study, we discovered that the drug was highly efficient on people, and no. We did not test efficacy in phase 1. We only tested what is the highest
Dose.
We are looking for safety, right?
Yeah.
I thought you said safety and the most effective mode of administration.
Yes, safety, yes, those two, but safety is the real thing there. Safety is most is very important. It is like you already determined how you are going to administer it, but for theory's sake, yes. In case you've not already made up your mind, I mean, at the lab level, how it will be administered, you can also try these other options, and oh, this is the best way. You should be taking as injection instead of orally. All right. And of course, there are different ways, but we don't need to go into all of that. These are for nurses. Single ascension dose and what they call multiple ascension dose. Are you familiar with that, Kima? Where in the first 1 week, you may want to give a set of patients 1 gram of the drug. Then second week, maybe 2 grams of the same drug. Third week, 3 grams. And then they get to a point where you're beginning to gain side effects, and then you stop at that level, knowing that that is the maximum. Yeah, are you familiar with that, Grace?
Yes.
Oh, okay, that's good. So what do you call that?
No, I'm familiar with it because I know someone that has sarcoidosis. So sometimes when we go in for the treatment, they tell us, oh, this week, just take 15 milligrams of this drug. And when we go for some test and how, then they tell us, oh, no, you have to bring it down back to 10. Sometimes they say 20. So that's how I got familiar with it.
Oh, okay. All right. For each type of administration, blood or other fluid samples are collected from patients at different points with respect to the drug administered. The sample is then analyzed and determined to determine how the drug is. Okay, so that's basically. All right. So what you have in the note here, like I said, I'm giving you the note, but it doesn't stop you from jotting like you're already doing, which is very good. So it's a way of, otherwise you find yourself reading volumes and volumes of notes later on. But if you just jot them, then it really saves you. So every time, how do you now take samples? So every time you administer, in this case, a drug, then you may want to take blood sample or some other fluid samples, maybe urine or something. All right, take it from the patient with respect to the drug. Sorry?
We work with the vendors to get that.
Actually, this is not you. I'm sorry. We're just talking. This is not the CDM. We're just giving a picture of what goes on behind. Yeah. None of this is CDM yet. We are just saying, okay, this is the arena. This is the field where you are working.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yes, of course, this will be at the site. The CRC with the nurses, working with the PI to do this along with and then once they get the sample, they send it to the vendor, and then the vendor analyzes, and based on the conditions in the protocol, they know where and how to send the result of the sample to the site and a copy to the sponsor. But like I said, the sponsor will have a unit attached that is also monitoring what is happening, because they are spending so much money on this project. So they will not just leave it completely to strangers. You also monitor what's going on.
Okay. So that means if some people get hired by the sponsors, they would actually be like their, most likely be their representative to be able to collect the data and transfer it to them, right?
Yes, the vendors, yes. To be their vendors. Because the protocol has so many sites and also so many vendors. And even programmers and software developers. The application, the hospital application that they are going to use to capture the data, ultimately, they are part of vendors. So if they have options, the ones they eventually decide, okay, we're going to use Oracle. So all of that will be enumerated and spelled out in the protocol. To say, this is what you use, this is this, this is this. So everybody already knows his place. And then under your place, you know that once a sample comes to you as the vendor, for example, after you analyze, you have only 2 days or 3 days to send the results to the site, and then a copy for reference to the sponsor. Because everything here is about data. The data must be captured in such a way that nobody should be able to what's the word now? To manipulate. So there should be a way to show that the original sample, this is the original sample sent because I have the original sample. So every copy you send to the site, you also want to make a copy with the sponsor as reserved so that the site does not manipulate and tell you, there's something wrong. No, you can always say, no, I have the real thing here. That is true. All right. All right, so this is the overview of, now that you know, you understand how these things work, you now begin to register in your mind now the kind of system you are going to design, the environment you are designing the system for. All right, phase 2. What do we do in phase 2? Whereas phase 1 determined safety, phase 2, we are determining the dosing requirements. That is how much drug should be taken. And to determine efficacy and how well the drug works on the prescribed dose. So phase 2 will typically be between 100 and 1,000 diseased. Phase 1 was not diseased. Phase 1 was healthy people. So phase 2 will be carried out on 100 to 1,000 diseased people. So these are the real patients. All right, so because they are diseased, we are giving medicine to diseased people. No, patients sick.
Okay.
They have the ailment that that the drug is trying to cure.
Can you come again? You said is to determine the dosage requirements.
Yeah, the phase 2 is dosing requirement, that is how much drug should be given, and to determine the efficacy as well. But for phase 2, the really important thing is the efficacy.
Effectiveness, right?
Yes.
Effectiveness.
Well, let's try and stick with the word efficacy, because that's the clinical word, even though effectiveness means the same thing. Yeah.
Efficacy. Okay.
Yeah. So how well the drug works on the prescribed dose. That's efficacy.
How well?
How well the drug works on the prescribed dose. Or you already determined the dose, but how well does the drug work? So your phase 2 will typically be for 100 to 1,000 diseased, in other words, conditioned people. So you need up to 2 years to really spend up to 2 years in this field before you can say, yes, I have the reliable results. So phase 2, what's the main purpose? What's the main thing you are trying to find out in phase 2? Phase 1, you are trying to find out dose.
So you said in phase 2, you're trying to determine, okay, first how many doses we can give, and then the efficacy of those doses.
Yes. So between these two, efficacy is the real thing. So underline that. Those phase 2 looks for efficacy. All right. Phase 3. So what's the primary purpose of phase 3? The primary purpose of phase 3 is to confirm efficacy. Want to confirm the efficacy. Okay, you have determined in phase 2 that this drug is effective for this headache. But in phase 3, you want to really confirm and remove all ambiguity, all doubts that, oh wow, it really works. And then monitor any adverse effects. Aside curing the headache, does it result in any other kind of effect, any adverse effect? So confirm efficacy and then monitor for adverse effects. But at the phase 3 level, remember that as you move from phase to phase, you are expanding. So if you had 100 to 1,000 people in phase 2, then what do you expect to have in phase 3? How many number of volunteers or patients?
1,000 to 10,000.
Yes, 1,000 to 10,000 volunteers. And this typically will take over 1 to 4 years.
8 to 10?
1 to 4, between 1 and 4 years.
No, I mean 1,000 patients, 8 to 10,000.
Number of patients, 1,000 to 10,000.
1,000 then.
1,000 to 10,000. All right, using, okay, you should know this point now. We'll talk about it in details later, but for now. So it is at this phase that we use randomized, controlled, randomized. You want to write that down? Randomized, comma, controlled. Multi-centered trial. Randomized, controlled, multi-centered trial. Randomized, controlled, multi-centered trials, and provides most of the long-term safety data. All right. So that's it. We're done. At phase 3, your work is done. However, there is phase 4. And what is phase 4? Phase 4 is the post-marketing surveillance to monitor the safety of the drug or device after it has been released in the market. Thousands of patients. So phase 4 is basically the post-marketing surveillance, PMS.
So what phase do they check for the side effects of the drugs to be able to bring it down?
At phase 3, they are still monitoring the side effects.
Okay.
They are still monitoring the side effects and they are still working to bring it down. However, that monitoring and trying to bring it down continues even after the drug has been released. to the market in phase 4. So it continues. That's about the only thing that continues, because the drug is, you already determined the dose, it's already efficient. Everything about the drug is already approved and it's already in the market. But the only thing you keep monitoring as the sponsor, as the owner of the drug, is how can we bring down the side effect? So you are on the lookout for anybody takes the medicine and comes back to the chemist to say, my son took this thing and he vomited. Or my son, somebody took this thing and he was drowsy, I had an accident, and all of those must be captured, all of those details. So as you are capturing as the CDM, you are ensuring that those details are captured in ways that the requirement expects. That is what the manufacturer will now use to make changes to the adverse effect. So if somebody takes the drug and then somebody in India takes the drug, and for some reason, the person, let's say, died and has nothing to do with the drug, still record it. A volunteer died, but even if you feel it has nothing to write it down. Now, if somebody in US also took the drug 15 months later and died, then you begin to read the connection. Maybe third time, fifth time, then there is something. So these are the adverse effects that they are monitoring. You see, could it have to do with our drug? Is there something that is causing them to? So when you see, they now begin to put as part of the precautions on the drug. When you take this drug, don't drive after before 2 hours or something. So these are the things they are monitoring to either improve on the drug or to eliminate those effects or warn the public. Warn the public that, look, after you take this drug, it may heal whatever you want to cure, it may cure it, but it has this other side effect. So they are mandated by FDA. That's why you see when they advertise, even in public places, they still put that warning that yes, it does this for you, but it has this side effect. So it continues, and they continue to work on it. So you may find that a drug that was advertised as having headache as side effect 2 years ago is still advertised now, but it's no longer carrying that headache side effect because they have worked on the drug, even though it's already there. They have worked on the side effects. If they ask, the drug is already in the market, you're already making your money, so why is it important for the big pharma to continue to monitor? The answer is with a view to eliminate the adverse effects completely, or as much as possible. All right, and then trial 4. That's the last bit for today. Trial phase 4. Oh, we already talked about trial phase 4, right?
Yes. Yeah.
He said, as for you, it has nothing to, you have no business there, but it does exist. It's post-marketing surveillance to monitor. Yeah, you continue to, it's never too much to monitor safety. You continue to monitor safety, but like we already said, you're actually monitoring, even though you are monitoring safety, you are monitoring the adverse effects so that it continues to remain safe. People that are using. All right, so these are the summary of the different phases. So subsequently, we'll be taking deeper dives on these phases. And then as we are zooming in and in, we'll get to a level where we want to really look at, we will begin to focus more on the work of the clinical data manager, starting with the data management, all right? But for today, I just needed you to understand those phases. All right, so can we just revise them? What do you understand? What have we learned today? So we learned that the single most important document that you need to do your work is the protocol. The protocol is developed by the sponsor in conjunction with the independent body that is taking care of the safety of patients. It's called the Institutional Review Board, as well as the FDA. And there is something called the Investigation on New Drug Application, which comes before the phase 1. And then the NDA, New Drug Application, which comes after phase 3. All right? We've seen that even though there are 4 phases, the CRM is active only in the first 3 stages, up to stage 3. So the CRM uses the protocol to build the study startup, sets up the system to start up the research, and then he activates the site. Okay? If there's going to be one site for clinical trial, he activates that site. If it's second stage, phase 2 of trial, where you have multiple sites, then he would activate all the sites. If it's phase 3, all sites must be activated. And then once sites are activated, but typically start with 1, so we can just start 1 site. So once the site is activated, it means that you cannot allow patients to come in and enroll them. All right. So enrollment starts. What's your name? And we start to capture data. And then once all of that is done, you now do your study conduct. And once the study conduct is complete, you close your study and you are done. So we'll be looking at what do you do under study startup? What do you do under site activation? What do you do under enrollment? What do you do under study conduct? And then what do you do under study closeout? These are the things you'll be looking at. That's where your work is. Your interview will be around, okay, this job is at the study startup stage. Have you ever handled a project at this stage before? Yes. Okay, what did you do during that stage? I was responsible for this, I did this, I did this. All of those elements and all of those examples that you are going to draw from, that's what we'll be looking at under study startup. What do you do? Site activation is really nothing more. It's basically study startup, study conduct, and study closeout. These are the areas where you'll be really, really busy. All right, questions, contributions? Questions and contributions. Are you guys tired already? It's not 2 hours yet. You're active at the beginning, so.
Okay, I think you covered everything, right? For now.
So quick question.
Yeah.
You said the phase 1 is used to determine the dosage, and the stage 2 is used to determine the effectiveness of the dosage you determined, yeah?
Yes.
So when you talked about you don't need volunteers, you don't need the diseased people at the first stage. So you can just bring in random people to test the dosage, even if you don't have, let's say they're testing for cancer now, even if you don't have cancer.
Because you are not testing whether the drug is working or not, you don't necessarily need diseased people as to do.
Okay, so there are no side effects. Let's say like if you have cancer, you're taking the cancer pills, they can ask you questions like that. That like if someone that doesn't have cancer is taking a cancer pill, what can happen?
Yeah, that's a valid question. But of course, because they are testing, it's a good question. So if you are saying, why test that drug on people who do not have the disease? What if the side effects affects them because they don't have the disease? In any case, remember the consent form, the IRB.
That is fine.
Yeah. So you must explain this to the patient. Let them know the risk that they are facing. That even though you do not have cancer, we are going to monitor you closely and make sure nothing happens, but you are going to be subjected to it. So it's really, really difficult to get volunteers.
Okay, I just want to say that concerning the dosage thing, I guess for the phase 1 is to determine the highest dose that is safe for human consumption. So practically for someone, let's take cancer for instance, someone that has cancer might probably be using 40 mm, and for someone that doesn't have cancer, it might just be 20 mm that will be safe for the person. So for phase 1 is just checking the safe dosage that they can use. So while the second stage is they're not checking the safe dosage anymore. They're just checking the effectiveness of the dosage now, right? On stage 2, just like during the pandemic and when they wanted to test the vaccine. People that went under the trial, most of them didn't have COVID. They went under it to see. And probably, I'm not sure though, but I'm just saying, when they went in, the first time they went in for their own phase 1, probably the shot they are giving us is 0.5 ml. They might try 0.2 ml on them and see, oh, is this okay for them because they don't have COVID? And see if it is okay for them, they let them go for phase 2 and they say, let's increase it to 0.5 for people that have COVID or for people to prevent COVID. So that's just the difference between, though phase 1 and phase 2 is talking about dosage, but the difference is just that the phase 1 is the effect.
Yeah. Very well explained. However, the phase 2, the increment is not in phase 2. The increment is still on phase 1.
Okay.
So, phase 1 would normally take like 2 years, right? So first time you come in, not rigidly 2 years, but it will take some time. First time you come in, they give you, just like you explained, Grace, right? They give you 0.001. That definitely will not harm you, even though you don't. And then they watch you over 2 weeks, 3 weeks, no effect, nothing. And then they give you 0. They increase that a little. And then they watch you for 2 weeks, no effect. They increase that. They will watch you so closely just to capture the point when you begin. Who has that question? The point when you begin to react. Yeah, fine. Yeah. So they would watch you closely to know. But in spite of that, if I feels, yes, there is a risk. Yes, there is a risk, to be honest. That risk must be explained to the volunteer, to the patient, because they're actually volunteering.
Other thing,
right? So it must be explained.
I think another point in addition to, for the gentleman that's asking the question, every clinical trial is different. Every drug is different. When it came down to Grace's example with COVID, this is across the board that can affect anyone globally, right? So it's easier to take volunteers for something like that. However, something more concentrated like cancer, in most clinical trials, even to the professor's point in phase 1, these people aren't sick, but they're not going to just take a random patient for certain drugs, period, point blank. So at the clinical trial, even in phase 1, they're still going to handpick patients that maybe is in remission. Okay, so they don't have cancer right now, but they're still willing to participate in the clinical trial just for statistic purposes, if that makes sense. Right. So they're not going to just take anybody to say, we're going to test you on cancer, or anybody for diabetes, right? They're not going to do that. They handpick still, even in phase 1.
And that brings us to something we are going to call in criteria and out criteria. Yeah, you're right. We'll talk more about that. So even though this healthy patient is not just anybody, you still have to meet the criteria.
Requirements.
Yeah, inclusion and exclusion criteria. Yeah, that's what.
Yeah, because how do we? Oh, another point, right? Because as I talk, it just sinks in for me more, guys. I'm sorry. Because when he even talked about a sponsor, right? So that hospital, the sponsor, they know their patients that have cancer, that have diabetes, that have high cholesterol, whatever. So part of the cherry picking, hand picking starts right there at the sponsor. You know, because how else are they going to mail letters out to like anybody? No. So they're going to look at the patients that they already have coming in and out to say, hey, you know, we coming up with a different drug. What do you think about this? Would you like to participate in our study?
Yeah.
Then sometimes they advertise it on TV though.
Okay.
True. I always see the advertisement on TV saying if you want to come in for clinical trial for this drug, they always state it that it doesn't mean you might not have it, but you just want to come in. And another thing is some people, they pay them. So some people always volunteer just for the money. So if I understand this class properly, it means even after the people that they volunteer themselves to say, oh, I want to participate in this. After going through the first phase, then they can now reach out to sick people that are in the hospital, and their doctors, which is the PI, can actually talk to them and say, oh, there is a clinical trial for this ailment you have. If you want to participate in it, talk to them, which what's the name of the body, call it now, let me hold on, let me
IRB.
The IRB, yeah. So they draw up just like they draw up a contract to say you sign here, to make sure to make sure their own safety too, which is on the phase 2, right? So,
yeah, in all the phases, safety is very paramount in all the phases. But you do get a good picture of everything. But as we dwell and dive deeper, some of these things will become clearer. But your understanding, your overview understanding is good. That's good. So, but very valid question. I mean, it helped us really, it brought us these things that we didn't know we know. What is that person? Are we satisfied with the answer? Who is Z?
Yes.
Oh, Z, okay. Yeah, but that could be a good interview question. All right, so any more contributions today? Okay, so no more contributions. So tomorrow, so the internet got better, right?
Yes.
Okay, so tomorrow I'm coming straight here.
So, sir, in all this process, at what point does the case report form comes in? That's CRF.
When we start to design, it's the first point of design. That's the first thing we design.
Okay.
I think we'll mention that tomorrow, and then subsequent.
Okay. So what about the I know she was talking about statistics earlier. I know they work with pharmaceutical and biostatistics people also get involved in this.
Who was talking about statistics?
I think what's the name? Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll talk about the statisticians and the biostatistics.
Yeah, I remember.
Talk about it.
Quick question for you, Grace. What type of work do you do? I'm just curious.
I'm self-employed right now.
Yeah, but what's your background?
Agronomy. So, okay, I know why you're asking. The thing is, I did a bit of breeding of plants. So sometimes we go through these things too, and breeding of plants.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Agronomy come.
Too much brain here. You have too much brain here.
Come data drug trial. Not too far. Far apart. All right. So tomorrow we'll continue. Right? Any last minute? Any last minute question? It's now Bonung, you see there.
So quick question. The volunteers, is there like a clinical term for them? Or you call them volunteers as well?
Sorry?
The volunteers, is there like a clinical name for them in the trial, or we call them volunteers as well?
Volunteers, patients, yeah. You can call them, patients is better. You call them patients. Yeah, subjects, yeah. Volunteers, patients, subjects, yeah. Any of them.
Man, I'm here. I'm just eating chips.
Oh, okay.
You can't eat in class, girl. You're gonna get homework for that. You have an assignment.
Okay. Edric, was Edric able to join eventually? He said he was going to join late.
Yeah, I think he joined at 6.
Yeah, I'm still here. I'm driving back to Springfield, so I'm just listening.
Oh, okay. So you didn't miss out completely there. All right, guys. So that'll be it today. So let's continue tomorrow, right?
All right.
Okay.
All right.
All right. So the video will be up on the site in another hour or so. So you can watch the video, and then I'll place some materials there, and then I'll just give. I have a heap of materials, so it's even confusing now. Maybe I should just focus on not giving material for now. What do you think? And then after all of this, I can do. Because it could be confusing.
I just feel if you drop the material now, I'm very sure a whole lot of people are going to check it before the next class and start asking something that is going to come up probably next month, and not what is going to come up the next class.
And then how much did they pay? Huh?
I don't even want to see the material now.
Okay.
You don't want to get overwhelmed, right?
Hello,
suggestion. Wait a minute, because looking at like just scrolling through like Indeed.com, okay, clinical data manager, just the description and the requirements, I was like, bye. Okay, never mind. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot, honestly.
Honestly, I wasn't really looking at the job description because sometimes these people just take whatever, like the HR. Some of the HR doesn't even know what we do, but they just take out they just go to the objectives and take everything and boom.
Yeah.
I don't look at that. I just feel like if I'm qualified, I'll just put my resume, and if you think I'm the right candidate, then hook me up. And sometimes, so.
Don't worry, we have resumes that are getting interviews right now. So you just
please. For the material, can I suggest to draw the next class material so that we can read ahead, so that we can have a full knowledge on what you want to teach us, so that we won't be lost or something of that nature. I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe you drop materials for the next class so that we can have a preview of it and have a knowledge about it. I don't know if it sounds good.
Okay. All right. I've heard you. I'll use my discretion.
Oh, sir, I'm thinking maybe everyone request, because I really don't want to see the material now. So
I know I'm the trainer. I know what to do. I was just following your lesson. I was asking your opinion. I already know what I would do. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Okay,
all right,
to
guys.
Mary's point, it wasn't really like she wanted to see all of the material. I think what Mary was saying is, okay, what are we discussing next week or something? Can you just give us that
excerpt of the material ahead
the
of
objectives for next year? I don't think she was asking for everything. Am I right, Mary?
Yeah, I guess
absolutely, you are right. Yeah, just
okay.
what to be done the next class, so that can
okay, so we'll see about that. So after all, we have a whole week after tomorrow. So what would you be doing? Yeah, maybe you should have some, not the whole material, some materials to prepare you. Okay, don't worry. All right, guys. See you tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you. Bye. Yeah.